I guess.
Do better next time.
We're actually live now because it says live at the top. But we were recording. So
we were recording, but we weren't live. What's the difference?
Live on YouTube.
Oh, should we start over?
Well, we're going to go with...
That was a practice round, guys. If you're watching right now, that was a practice round that you didn't see.
And I will be editing this when we go to the actual... when we actually upload the podcast. Hey, this is our first episode. Okay, so first, let's go ahead and start with the intro music again.
Ooh, I do like the intro video.
It's good to dance to.
That's...
Get your dancing shoes on, guys.
I mean, I really like it. Now we are back to normal. Welcome to our podcast. This is where we're going to talk about nerdy topics, our favorite fandoms, and deep dive into just anything that's... Hello.
You disappeared.
I disappeared. Gotta love it. Anyway, Marty, take it from here.
Yeah, so this is our nerdy podcast, another Frakkin podcast. We're going to be talking all things nerdy, fandoms, sci-fi, science, and technology in today. And we are supposed to be doing introductions, but we just lost Joseph.
We did.
So
I'm sure he will be back, though. He's just having technical difficulties.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I am Marty. I am a crime, suspense, and thriller author. I write under the pen name Karin Nordin. I have a background in biochemistry, English literature, creative writing, and Scandinavian cultural studies. And that was almost the intro again, which I guess you guys can't get enough of. Or we can't get enough of it.
It's really good.
The intro was fun to make, except it took up my entire Friday. And people kept asking, what are you doing sitting over there in the corner? And I'm like, I am very focused on secretly downloading everybody's TikTok videos and getting rid of the watermark.
It's time consuming.
It is. It is. And Van, who are you?
I am Van. I am what I would consider a very general nerd. I know a lot about nothing.
Or a little about everything.
A little about everything. I follow whatever happens to be the most interesting thing at the time. And I don't stay on one subject very long. So I feel like I never know enough about any subject to be an expert. But I know a little bit about so many exciting things. See, my first introduction was better.
Can you at least hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. So I'm not sure what's going on with my video. I will be right back. I think I know what to do now.
For those of you who may be watching, this is a first-time run-through. We're all newbies at this podcast game, and clearly it shows.
Technology can be difficult.
I mean, as long as this is not like a Terminator moment and we're about to like Skynet ourselves, I'm going to say we're okay.
Yeah.
Is he back? And he's back.
He's back. He's moving.
And I just realized that if I want to swap, I have to leave the studio and come back in. Anyway.
It's your turn to introduce yourself, Joseph.
Hey, I'm Joseph. I'm the technical expert here.
And doing really well at it.
Well, I was trying to be fancy with like my camera and like EOS Studio, and that's just not in the cards for the cable that I actually own to connect everything. So, yay.
It's entirely possible that while you were gone, we were not recording.
No, we're definitely recording and
Okay.
streaming.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just recording. Anyway, look, we've got this. I'll chop it up. It's totally fine. We're professionals here. I'm Joseph. I have been watching sci-fi since I was 3 years old. I have a background in genetics. I also randomly have like a master's degree in history for whatever reason. So, in particular, Irish history. And I work in cybersecurity now because genetics got boring. I don't know how else to explain that.
Because you weren't allowed to make dinosaurs in the lab.
That's
this is
definitely what
actually
it was.
part of it. Kind of fun fact, I worked on the Human Genome Project, which was actually really boring. So, like...
That makes me very sad that that's boring. But I understand that it would be boring.
Boring. Like, I just used
I
that pipe.
feel like it would be very tedious day to day.
It was very tedious. It was the same thing, like, every single day. Anyway, yep, that's me, a bored former biologist. So, intro topic, right? That's what we've moved on to, I think.
Yes.
Okay, favorite fandoms. Who wants to go first?
I feel like this question is offensive and I should not be forced to answer it because it's like picking your favorite child.
This is true.
You can't do that.
I actually sat down and made myself a list this morning, and I was trying to think of like, okay, what fandoms, if I had to explain myself to somebody using just fandoms, like what would I actually like say to them? Like, if you want to know me, these are the fandoms you have to like read or watch. And it was very difficult because I was like, it's getting way too long. This list is too long. Nobody has time to do that. You need a lifetime.
I was trying to give myself like a limit. Like you have to stop. You can't talk about that many.
The limit does not exist.
Yeah, no. My note got very long.
Okay,
well, Joseph,
so,
what fandoms make up you, Joseph? Like, if we wanted to get to know you, what would we have to watch?
obviously Star Trek. Obviously Star Trek. And by the way, save Lower Decks. Just throwing that out.
And Prodigy. I want to bring Prodigy back for a third season.
Oh my goodness, Prodigy. I am excited to watch season 2 tomorrow because season 1 was so good.
I have to admit that it was really hard to get here because I live in Europe, and it was really hard to get Prodigy. And I actually just watched it yesterday for the first time.
Oh.
So I'm ready.
So Gregory complains about this all the time.
Yes.
So yeah. I cannot believe how hard Paramount makes it for people to actually watch the things we want to watch. Anyway.
So which Star Trek specifically are you?
Okay.
If you had to choose one or two.
The history behind me is my mom would let me stay up late as a very young child to watch the original series with her. Right. So Spock definitely had a huge influence on me growing up, but I probably am somewhere in the Deep Space Nine canon if you were to pick one Trek. Miles O'Brien is like my hero. He's just this a union man, everyday guy who also happens to fix everything. They're like aliens with amazing powers, and here's Miles O'Brien keeping an entire ship from spinning off into space. And that kind of even resembles my current job. So I kind of love Deep Space Nine. So that's one fandom. Doctor Who is another show that I grew up watching. The original like run through of Doctor Who, starting with, oh gosh, names have escaped me because I am live and nervous. The guy with the scarf.
The fourth Doctor?
Doctor, yeah. It's definitely the fourth Doctor. I say that with almost confidence. Anyway.
I think I can answer this question with the other shirt I almost wore today for this event.
Oh, that
yes.
would have been
he's number 4.
He is
right?
number Yes.
There we go. Number 4.
Yes. Anyway, so I've been watching Doctor Who since then. So not since then, because obviously it was reruns by the time I got around to watching it, I think. But let's see what else.
But which doctor? Who's your doctor then? Because everybody has their own doctor, right?
Everybody has a doctor.
Yeah.
David Tennant has kind of become everybody's doctor, hasn't he, at this point? Like, I would say it was the 4th, but David Tennant also is amazing. So I do
Yes.
like David Tennant runs as well. Probably
Dave
4
as a human being is just amazing.
Yes.
Nick.
I think that's what makes him such a great doctor as well. I mean, 9 was the doctor that I started with. So
Right.
I have a special place in my heart for 9. But yeah, David did fantastic.
Yeah, that's fair. And I think like Sherlock Holmes would be the other thing that I read a lot of growing up and had a huge passion for. So if you were to explain me, it'd be like a mix of Sherlock Holmes and Doctor Who and something from Deep Space Nine, I would say.
I love it.
I
love that Miles O'Brien is your favorite character as well from Deep Space Nine.
It makes a lot of sense.
I like the niche secondary characters in Star Trek. I feel like there's a lot of meat to the secondary characters that you don't see in a lot of other fandoms.
He was in so many episodes of Trek. Because he was in all of Deep Space Nine, and then he was in a little bit of TNG. So, I think Michael Dorn's the only guy who's been. Well, there's probably a few who have been on more, but Michael Dorn was on the most, right? So, but yeah, Miles O'Brien.
I think that's a great choice.
Yeah, that's a good list. Van, do you want to go next, or should I go?
Yeah, I feel like Joseph was reasonable and like kept his list.
Yeah, my
short.
list is
And
not
I'm
that
like,
reasonable.
Looking at my list, and I'm like,
can I make it to 3?
What can I cut here? Like, what can I cut?
I'm not gonna cut anything.
I don't remember watching my first Star Trek episode, and like part of me is really sad about that because so many of my friends have this like moment. They went and saw this movie in theater. They were sitting down with somebody. They watched this episode. Like they remember it. And I'm like, I don't remember. Anytime Star Trek came on the TV and my parents were flipping through, they just turned it on. Like in the middle of an episode, they would turn it on. So that was the original series and the Next Generation. Were mostly like what came on the TV and we watched. But like, I don't remember my first one. I do remember like growing up, Spock and Data were like who I related to the most, which looking back makes a lot of sense. But yeah, Star Trek, huge. I do think my favorite series now is either Voyager or Discovery, and I am torn between the two. But
I love those two though as a combination because there are a lot of similarities between them. They kind of like run parallel with each other, like storytelling wise, I think.
They really do.
Just like the ship being kind of isolated from the Federation, from Starfleet, like from the Starfleet they know, It's just female captains.
Yes.
I do love the fact that those two shows are your favorite and they're female captains. But I will honestly say, I think I see a lot of similarities between Discovery and Deep Space Nine. And that's just in how raw the emotions are and how flawed the people can be.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think also, too, on that note, just the fact that Discovery and Deep Space Nine, they venture into territories that some of the other Treks don't because of their like the way the setup is. Deep Space Nine was so good at going into politics and religion and all these different aspects. And I feel like Discovery does that as well.
I'm going to speak heresy, right? My top 3, if you were to ask me my top 3 Treks, it would be Discovery, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. And I think those are the superior Treks. And I'm going to walk away slowly.
I feel like this is going to be a podcast episode in itself.
This could be an entire...
This could be.
This very easily. Very easily.
Well, I'll be
Sorry.
looking forward to your thesis on that one next time.
Go on, Van. Sorry, I cut you off.
Star Wars obviously is a huge one for me. I don't talk about it a lot online because we all know why. But when
Messy.
my baby brother was small, he slept about 6 hours a night. And the doctors are like, he's fine. He just doesn't sleep. Uh, but the best way to get him to fall asleep was to turn on Star Wars. And he didn't care at what point in the 3 movies it was, because this is the original trilogy. You just turned it on, waited till he fell asleep, and then you turned it off, and then you restarted it in the exact same spot. So very quickly, I didn't even need to be in the room. Just hearing what was happening, I knew exactly what was going on. So yeah, those are like burned into my brain. So huge Star Wars. Of course, we gotta delve into Battlestar Galactica just being absolutely phenomenal.
Fantastic.
And I'm rewatching it now because it's on Prime, which is so exciting. Uh, and I'm realizing like this was just on TV. Like they just put this on TV and like I don't know. I think I totally glossed over some parts of it when I watched it at a much younger age because like way over my head. But like now I'm like, what? It's so fantastic rewatching things as an adult and seeing something completely different. But yeah, no, that is like huge. I really like the storytelling in it.
It's very expansive. Like it covers so much. And it's funny because I've rewatched Battlestar, I think, I don't know, 5, 6 times. And every time I go back, it's like I forgot that entire season or I forgot that entire storyline. And there is so much that is relevant even to like today's world that like I wouldn't, when you go back and watch some of those early episodes when they're first leaving and they're having to make the rules about like what is allowed and what isn't allowed, I'm just like, oh, I forgot about that. And that's heavy. That's heavy stuff to just put on television.
I mean, it's a lot. I was in my current rewatch, there's a whole subplot about a little girl, and then that gets into some really dark places. And I'm like, wait, we're just throwing that on TV. That got dark real fast.
Yeah. No, but Battlestar, like just the storytelling was fantastic, and the actors they chose, I felt each one of them hit their mark so perfectly. It was like I feel like in every show I watch, there's like somebody that I feel like was this person really well cast? Do I just need to like have them grow on me? But I feel like that show hit it out of the park from the very first episode with the people that they chose.
They're also good. They're also good. Moving on, Babylon 5. I don't know if either of you ever watched that one.
I watched the hell out of it.
See, Babylon 5 is actually, this is a horrible thing to admit as a nerd. I actually have not seen it in its entirety. And Star Trek is the reason why I have, because I just kept watching Star Trek over and over. That like, whenever somebody would say, why don't you sit down and watch Babylon 5? I'd be like, that's a commitment, you guys. And I'm already committed.
It is. It's a commitment. It influenced a lot of my teens though, because we would like watch it, but we wanted to share it with some of our best friends who didn't have cable or satellite. So like we had like the VCR and like we were trying to cut out the commercials. So like we're like trying to record just Babylon 5 and like stop the recording, wait for the commercials, restart. But we rewatched it so many times. It's so amazing. If you sit down and watch it now, it is very relevant and it has aged really well. Like really well.
I'll have to add it to my list. I'll just force myself to do it.
If you like Deep Space Nine, you will love Babylon
And
5
that's
because
what everybody says, and I do love Deep Space Nine. Oh.
the rumor
They-
is Paramount stole the idea and made
Well,
Deep Space Nine.
there are a lot of parallels in between. And I think that they kind of liked the idea that was pitched. And they did want to turn it into a Star Trek show. And the creator said no. So I think they might have been like, oh, space station. That was fun. Let's do it. But yeah, there are a lot of similarities. But they are very different shows. And the character development across the 5 seasons is very similar to Deep Space Nine.
Yep.
Like we got a lot of development from all the characters, like even side characters. Some of the best romances in television, in my opinion, are in Babylon 5.
Okay, that kind of intrigues me because that has always been like the one thing about Trek where I'm like, you guys could push the envelope just a little bit more here. And I feel like they finally did with Discovery, but before that's always been kind of like, will they, won't they? Let's wait 7 seasons and then never find out. So that might push me into watching it today.
It did really well.
It's very good.
I am low-key mad that they never had follow-up series past like a certain, like they had a couple of like made for TV movies.
Yeah.
And that was it. And then nothing more.
They did do a cartoon movie recently.
Did they?
Yeah, it was on Prime, I think.
I'll see now. I've got to go look for this.
It
I didn't see
is. I don't want to say it's bad. It's not bad. But when I wanted more Babylon 5,
Mhm.
like it didn't scratch that itch. Like it is more Babylon 5, but it didn't like fulfill what I wanted. It was like reading a comic. Like I love Star Trek comics,
Mhm.
but like they're not the same as watching a Star Trek
No.
episode, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes
It was-
perfect sense.
That's what it was. It's good. I recommend it if you like Babylon 5. Absolutely. But like it's not the same as another series.
Is there any possibility that they could come back with it like they did with Picard? Like are the actors still around? Like that's how much I don't know about Babylon 5.
That's one of the big reasons that they did a cartoon is a lot of the actors are not.
Oh.
I would like to see like a revival, a continuation. Like we don't need the same
Like
thing.
a Strange New Worlds type
Yeah.
thing.
Or like a Voyager thing. We're going for completely new characters, completely different time than say the original series. I think they could do it.
Next generation of people.
That would be cool. All right, well, you guys have convinced me. I'm adding it to the list. I'm looking it up as soon as this is over.
It's really good. Let me speed through a couple more. Firefly, obviously.
Yes.
Hate Josh, but
Love
he
the
writes
show.
some good stuff.
Yeah. That was
Buffy.
so innovative. And I'm a big fan of Westerns. So like that show hit like that sci-fi Western niche that I just was waiting years for.
So fun. Doctor Who, obviously.
Favorite Doctor?
Definitely the ninth. No question. My parents had watched Doctor Who. So when they came back, like when they revitalized the series, we sat down like the day it premiered and they sat like all of us down and they're like, you have to watch this. Yeah. How could you not be a fan? Like it's incredible. Yeah, the Ninth Doctor is always my favorite. And
I
of
like the
course,
leather jacket.
yeah,
Well, you cosplay him, so
I
we should have
did.
known that. We should have known that.
I did. And then of course Captain Jack Harkness and Torchwood. Obsessed. I mean, obsessed. Though I do not recommend Torchwood to most people who like Doctor Who. It gets a little dark.
I think that's why I liked Torchwood, because it did go
Yeah.
dark.
It does go dark. But a lot of people who love Doctor Who watch it and hate it because Doctor Who, even when it gets dark, it's never that dark. And it's always hopeful. And like at the last second, you know, some brilliant thing comes out of the Doctor's mouth and he saves the day. And then Torchwood, like they don't always win. And even when they do win, it's like it's not a full win. It's like a compromise. Love it though. Love it. And then we could delve into books, and that would take me all day. But I do want to mention Good Omens, only because it is such a big fandom now. And like, as much as I love how big it is now, I'm like, I've been a fan of this for so long. I started with Terry Pratchett books. We all read them as a family and passed them around, which led us to all reading Good Omens, which led me to Neil Gaiman, who is now my favorite author. The amount of times I've read Good Omens is probably obscene. Like, it is a masterpiece of a book, and you can read it 10 times and it is still good, and you're still finding new things in it. If you haven't read it, you should.
I actually haven't read it, but I did have drinks with Neil Gaiman, and I didn't tell him I hadn't read it. I don't think he would have cared. He was just there for the mingling, but super nice guy.
Neil Gaiman is amazing. But
yes, one day.
Next time he's around, I'll give you a call. We can all go.
I did see him in person once. It was like during COVID though, so like I had bought a meet and greet and it had been canceled due to restrictions. Oh, no. But like we were sitting like in the front row, so we were like 6 feet away.
If you get the opportunity to do it again, I highly suggest it. He's just as funny as it sounds, down to earth, chill, kind of shy, quiet, like what you would assume a typical author would be, like not totally weird. Like,
I love that.
I think you're a typical author. Like, I expect all authors to be like Marty.
Yeah. Exactly like you.
I'm gonna set a bad example for everybody. Authors are usually afraid to talk.
Really?
From the ones that I have met, it's been kind of like, we spend so much time in our heads, and like the magic comes from your brain to your fingertips, not from your brain to your mouth. So
that makes sense.
You multitask.
A lot of them have been quiet. That evening was actually it was a fun evening. It was a bunch of authors, and he was there, and everybody was kind of quiet, and it was kind of like, who's going to make the big like discussion? And luckily there was another famous person there who was not like normal. He was an actor first, author second, and he was quite, verbose. So it started the conversation going.
But you would have done it otherwise, right?
Huh? Oh yeah, I would have said something. I would have said, I don't remember what I said to Neil. I'm sure it was completely embarrassing.
I mean, that's what would happen if I met him in person.
I blacked out. I have a picture to prove it, but the rest I just blacked out.
I mean, I get that. Van, you done with your
yeah. I could go on for like 3 more hours, but I don't have enough.
Maybe I have something on my list that is also on your list, and we can continue that discussion forever.
You start your list of fandoms.
So, like everybody, Star Trek, of course. And it's funny that you said like people that remember their first Star Trek. I actually do, because of my first experience with Star Trek. I was like the biggest anti-Trek person ever because of my first experience with Star Trek.
Really?
I'm fascinated now.
So when I was younger, like really young, my mom had this my mom really liked Harrison Ford. So she had this belief that if Harrison Ford is in it, I'm allowed to watch it as a small child. His movies were okay. It didn't matter if they were rated R because they were Harrison Ford movies, they were fine. So she started me on Indiana Jones. So that's one of my big fandoms. And after Indiana Jones, after I destroyed the VHS tapes, we went on to Star Wars. And then my mom was like, man, there's not a lot of, more Harrison Ford movies that a kid at age 6 or 7 or whatever is going to be really into. So we're at the Blockbuster one day and she's just like, well, you like Star Wars. I'll just get Star Trek, the motion picture.
Oh no.
No.
Because my mom had actually never seen Star Trek, the motion picture, but she had watched TOS on TV when she was a kid. So she was like, well, I liked TOS as a kid. And back then you couldn't find TOS episodes. They just, unless it was rerunning on TV Land, Nick at Night or whatever. You couldn't go to the video store and get a VHS of TOS. So she got the motion picture, and I fell asleep as one would expect 15 minutes into the first blue streaming CGI. I woke up and there was still blue streaming CGI, and I just was like, Mom, this is the worst thing ever. Harrison Ford is not in it. This is so bad. And then a few years later, I think I was 8 or 9, I saw the reruns of TOS on TV, and then I was like, oh, now I get it. When they're younger and I can actually tell them apart at that time.
I have a question. Did you ever watch Wrath of Khan or Search for Spock?
No. So I saw the motion picture and then I was like, no, Mom, this is the worst thing ever. Star Trek. I hate it. I hate Star Trek, says the biggest Trekkie in the I couldn't watch it. But then after the TOS episodes, my mom went back to the Blockbuster, and I think she must have asked somebody at the Blockbuster, hey, what is Star Wars, but not like Star Wars? And I think they gave her The Voyage Home. And then I was hooked. That. I'm like, oh, whales. Oh, Spock is swimming with whales. I'm like, this is cool. Oh, I get it. This is my style, The generation, of course, we know the generation that we all wanted to be marine biologists, of course.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't want to be a marine biologist. I just wanted to swim with the whales like Spock. So I was like, let's do this, guys. Yeah, so that was my introduction to Star Trek.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
I don't love that. I mean, if she had started you with the Wrath of Khan, I think you probably would have been a fan much earlier. But
I would say if she had started me with Wrath of Khan, it would have been fine, and that is because of something else that's on my list here.
Listen, when I watched Wrath of Khan, I was traumatized and bawling, and it was the end of the world. At the end of the
okay,
my parents had to comfort me and then tell me that there was another movie and Spock came back. Spock was my favorite.
Yeah,
I watched
it was my favorite too.
And what's funny is I'm pretty sure I had seen The Voyage Home already. So
you knew, but you didn't know.
But I didn't know what order they were supposed to be in because I'm probably 5 or 6 at the time. But yeah, no, inconsolable.
Yeah. I was 4 when Wrath of Khan came out, and I just remember I had to console my mom because she was so upset that Spock died.
Oh my god!
Oh no!
You don't know.
We had we went to rent the VHS and watch it at home, and my mom's just emotional. And I was like, there has to be another one. There has to be another one. And we had to wait for it.
My mom was so sad because you go back then, you go to Blockbuster, it was $1.99 for a movie, and you got it for 2 days. And she gets me Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and I'm like, I hate this. But you are so right. If she had started with Wrath of Khan, I would have been hooked. And the reason I would have been hooked was Ricardo Montalban, because one of the biggest fandoms for me growing up was the Planet of the Apes. And he was in Escape from the Planet of the Apes and the beginning of Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. And I was obsessed with that series, the first 5 movies, and then going into the TV series. and then the TV series turned into movies kind of thing. Like that Planet of the Apes is like, oh man, it's my heart. Like I love Planet of the Apes. I even like the new ones to an extent. And actually the newest one that just came out, I have to say was quite good because there were a lot of like references back to the first two original Planet of the Apes movies. But yeah, but if I had seen Wrath of Khan first, I would have immediately made that connection to Ricardo Montalban. I would have been like, oh, do we get more of this guy? And I would have watched the whole thing to find out if he was in anything else. But yeah, I do Star Trek. Yeah, so TOS is for me super like that was my first really, and so that was the one I really liked. And then Deep Space Nine. Yeah, I love Deep Space Nine because I love the characters. I love the storytelling method. Another reason I like Battlestar Galactica is because I like Deep Space Nine, and I feel like there's a lot of correlation between Battlestar and Deep Space Nine because just thematically they kind of follow that parallel path, which I really like. I like story. I like it when they get into that meaty, like dystopian aspect of the world that they're in. And it's cool with Star Trek to see a dystopian Star Trek in a way because they're not in the Federation because it's, it's Bajor and Cardassian. It's not what we were used to. Yeah.
It's not paradise.
Yeah. And I thought that was a really smart move for them to do because, there is something cool about the utopia of the future, and humans have like advanced the point of peace and prosperity for everyone. But then a good reminder that that's not how it always is for everybody. So that was cool with Deep Space Nine. Stargate.
Yeah.
Thank you for mentioning Stargate because I left that off my list.
Stargate. And I couldn't even tell you which is my favorite. I mean, I really loved the first few seasons of the original because I was a big Richard Dean Anderson fan. I used to watch MacGyver by accident because it was on television right before the next fandom on my list. And so, yeah, I really liked the original. But I was also like devastated when was it Star Trek? Was it Continuum? The one only ran for one season.
Stargate Universe. Yeah,
because I thought that show had so much potential.
I think it was just one, or was it 2 seasons? But it ended way too soon.
It ended really soon.
That's the one Stargate I have seen zero of.
I remember it had a rough start, but then I remember like towards the end, I thought this show had more potential than Atlantis, I thought at the time.
Yeah.
And I was very sad that didn't continue because I really was a big Stargate fan.
It had 2 seasons, 40 episodes. And
oh, that's right. It ended on like a weird cliffhanger or something, so it made you feel like it was kind of one season. It was yeah.
And I hate that, but you're right. It had a lot of potential. It was very Battlestar Galactica-esque.
It was.
So
that probably explains why I liked it. I also like that the one lead actor, the scientist, whose name I can't, the British actor.
Let's see.
From Once Upon a Time.
Robert Carlyle.
Yes.
For Rush. Yes.
He was so good. He was so good.
I am not pulling this in my head, by the way. It's kind
of a Gaius Baltar sort of character, and Gaius Baltar was my favorite BSG character. So.
Oh my goodness.
So good.
He's so much fun.
But the reason I was a Stargate fan was because I watched MacGyver. And the only reason I watched MacGyver was because it came on right before Quantum Leap. And Quantum Leap, man, I love Quantum Leap. I think my first fanfic I ever wrote was like a Quantum Leap fanfic. It was either that or X-Files, which is also a big thing for me, the X-Files.
Have you watched the I guess the new Quantum Leap?
I haven't yet. I can't figure out where to find it here.
Oof.
I might have to like find it by means. But yeah, Quantum Leap, the X-Files, the Twilight Zone.
Oh.
Which I feel like that like influenced me as a writer. The Twilight Zone was just like, I want to write. those kinds of stories.
It's an amazing show.
Such a good show. I always think of like the episode with the man who just wants to read. He's got all the time in the world. Oh my gosh, that one.
That's a very relatable episode.
Yeah. And then like Van said, we could go into books, but like I feel like book wise, like the most like influential one for me is just like the Stephen King universe. Like
so amazing.
And I even like the bad movies. Like the original Stand miniseries. I have like a story about that series, and like that will never leave me.
I have to admit, I do like the bad ones too.
Yeah.
There have been so many comments about how bad some of the movies are. I'm like, oh, I watched the shit out of it, so
I'll watch them all. There's something about like maybe it's because like we had this tradition as a like I started reading Stephen King because of my mom. She's a huge Stephen King fan, and we had this tradition that for Mother's Day we would buy my mom like a B-rated horror film from like the 50s or 60s because she was really into those, like The Blob and The Tingler and The House on Haunted Hill, and she loved those. So every year for Mother's Day we'd buy one of those for her and we would watch them. And I feel like that's how she got into Stephen King. And I think that's why I like the cheesy bad Stephen King movies, because they kind of remind me of like those old B-rated horror films, like, you know, Tarantula or whatever.
Okay, I'm going to say this and you will judge me for it, and I'm okay with that, but I liked the really bad original sci-fi movies, like the original
Sharknado?
The original Sharknado, I will watch the hell out of. Not all of the like crazy stuff that came after, because it was just movie stars trying to get into a trend, and I despise that, by the way. Anyway, but yeah, I will watch the hell out of some really bad sci-fi just for fun. This is not stuff that I'm going to rewatch or try to get any sort of like meaning or deeper philosophy out of, like I do with Trek or Star Wars, Doctor Who or Stargate or any of those others, right? It's just absolute, just to see how bad it is. Yeah. And I realize that makes me a very kind of lower tier sci-fi fan.
No, absolutely not. We all like popcorn.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We all like popcorn.
And I love a lot of TV shows and books and movies that I call popcorn. And it's only occupying a small percentage of my brain when I enjoy it. And sometimes that's all my brain wants, is just, that's all it can handle, is just a little bit. I can't always sit down and watch something, you know, deep, or read like a really elaborate, well-developed universe when I'm reading a book. Sometimes I just need popcorn.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I mean, to kind of, so you don't feel too bad about that. Something that I used to really like, and I've never admitted this, and you might not even know what I'm talking about. We're going way back here. This is like late 90s, I think. VH1 used to make movies, right? But they were kind of like fan fiction. They were like AU universe, like what if this happened in the music world back then. And one of the movies that they made that I was like obsessed with, they made a what if Paul McCartney visited John Lennon the week before he died. I can't remember what the movie was called, but it's about like Paul McCartney goes to visit John Lennon like the week before he dies. They go out, they have this like fantastic time together. They like hang out, they make music together. It's a fan fiction made into a movie. And I was like obsessed with them. They made like 3 or 4 of them. They were super niche. I don't know. And I just kept thinking when they came out, I kept thinking like, how are they allowed to make this? Like, how is this legal? I'm pretty sure they didn't ask anybody if they could use their likeness or whatever.
You can do anything as long as you're not popular enough to be noticed.
Yeah. I mean, I noticed. But yeah, so I'll give you Sharknado if you'll give me my Beatles fanfics movies.
I will accept that because I do remember the premise of that movie, which means I must have watched some of it, but I don't remember details, which means I probably fell asleep at some point. But I will grant you it was a fascinating premise, so
Yeah.
go watch
And
it.
actually, I might be wrong because my brain sometimes is not right. But like, if I remember correctly, the guy who played, I want to say that the guy who played John Lennon in that film went on to later play Paul McCartney in a different film or something like that. Like there was a person in that movie who played one Beatle in that film and then went on to play another Beatle in a different film or something like that. It was weird.
I'm going to be deep diving into this now because
I could be wrong, but I think it happens.
I'm going to scour the internet, and you'll probably, if you're wrong, I will spend hours going through. But that's time well spent. I just want to point out that there is a weeping angel on camera, so I'm sorry to everybody, but yes, that's a weeping angel over there.
Why do you
Well, at least
have
we're
that?
looking
That's an
at it.
apex predator. You have an apex predator in the room with you, and you turned your back to it.
Yeah. Your back is turned. You're in danger. We are not in danger. Or do you cancel yourself out because you're looking?
The image of an angel is an angel, so you are actually also in danger.
We're also in danger.
But we're looking at the angel.
Yeah.
True.
I feel like we haven't all blinked at the same time. It'll be fine. But back to the why do you have this?
I 3D printed it. Hold on.
You did this on purpose.
We got to see it now.
Did it on purpose. Yeah. So.
Well, now we have to have an episode on niche figurines that are just like, sitting in the office.
Why is it hanging out in my bookcase, facing me or like behind me? I don't know. Don't ask me why I do these things.
Living on the edge.
Kind of, yeah. Okay, so nobody said Lord of the Rings, and I'm just shocked. But
I actually am shocked as well.
It's on my list. I do have it there, but like I was cutting my list down because like I didn't want to bring it up without like going on a 5-minute tangent about it.
Tolkien is probably one of my favorites. I am not, deep level nerd on Tolkien like some people can be, right? Like Stephen Colbert, but I do love Tolkien.
He is.
Yeah, I thought I was a Tolkien fan, and then I heard him talking about Tolkien. I was like, I'm just a nobody because holy crap, this dude has everything memorized.
Yes.
My best friend growing up was a huge Tolkien fan. And I tried to, I remember he gave me one of the books when I was like younger, and I tried and I couldn't get through it. And I felt really bad. And then later realized I probably should have started with The Hobbit. That was probably the one that I should have started with. Because I was like, why is it like 50 pages of descriptions of trees? But yeah.
Because that's how Tolkien writes.
Yeah.
I did not read it the first time. My dad read The Hobbit to us. I have 2 sisters who are very close in age to me. And he would read that as our bedtime story. And we moved on. He read The Lord of the Rings, all 3 books to us. And then 2 or 3 years later, he did it again. He started with The Hobbit and he read. So I probably heard it 3 or 4 times before I was old enough to where I read it myself. So when I was sitting down and reading these like really long paragraphs about a bush, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. It's fine. I can.
Did you like read it in your dad's voice though?
I do hear it in my dad's voice when I read it. He did not sing the songs for us, which is fair, but we watched all of the movies when they came to theaters. We were super excited for them. And I remember being so angry when the DVDs came out because my parents would not buy them as soon as they came out because they knew that the like special edition was coming
It's
out.
long.
And they're like, no, you have to wait
Oh,
for that. You have to wait for that. We're not going to buy the DVD. We're going to wait.
they're practical
So-
nerds.
Yeah. But then we got the huge collector edition with all the behind the scenes, and we watched everything, all the commentaries, all the behind the scenes. Like, but we would just have to wait until the more expensive DVD came out. They weren't going to buy both. But yeah, no, huge. Heard it so many times as a kid.
I love how the people involved in those films, like the actors, they seem to still be like friends. Like that was like a bonding moment for those people. Like Star Trek is. It seems like
Yeah.
those people were always going to be like together. If there's an opportunity for them to be together, it's like, you know.
Yeah.
I
I
think that's
feel
cool.
like that translates onto the screen really, really well.
Yeah.
Like you can tell. And you can tell in other movies and TV shows, I feel like, because
Well,
there are some where they stay together and hang
Mhm.
out and do conventions and seem to really talk and be friends afterwards. And there are some where it's like they never speak again. So
it's like Stargate. You know, you can see that those actors still talk and chat, and there's good chemistry on set. And just we get a behind the scenes look sometimes because of our friends at Three Fry Short.
Fantastic.
So yeah, it's so awesome. Okay, what to expect in the upcoming episodes?
We have
We're
lots of ideas.
we do have lots of ideas. Rambling. I feel like if you're not down for rambling,
We're just gonna nerd out because we like to, and it's our podcast, so that's what we do. But yes, rambling, but good ideas. We're gonna deep dive into specific topics instead of just talking about all the things we love all at once. Let's be honest, we're going to talk about all the things we love all at once.
We are. But I think this was a good kind of introduction to who we are, what we like, and if you like these things, then you're going to like this podcast because these are the kinds of things we're going to talk about.
Yes, and
But
and questions. If people want to ask us questions, we will have a presence. And I'm going to let you finish your point, Marty.
oh no, I was just going to say, but I think you have some specific topics planned that are actual, like real science world related topics that may also correlate into science fiction.
Right. So I mean, we were kind of group thinking this, right? But like real life sci-fi inspired things. Obviously, there are lots of gadgets out there that were inspired by sci-fi. Will we ever leave the solar system?
I love that one.
I mean, there are many people that need to leave the solar system. And if they don't go, then they should just send me.
I have got a list, and
That's my other list.
I live in
People who need to leave the solar system.
my list would like fill my room. That's my list. It's on my bookcase. How does time travel work? So
That could be like a 3-part series.
I'm very excited about that series. Yes.
Let's see, our favorite sci-fi, or our favorite moments in sci-fi. Reading doesn't always work for me, so I need to take my time to read out the words one by one. There's so many. Who do we ship and why? Because as we talked about in this episode, sci-fi doesn't always do a good job on the romance side of things.
Remember, we have to make it up for ourselves.
Right? And history that inspired plot lines so much. I mean, that could be like a 10-part episode. Like,
listen, we could have 10 parts just about Doctor Who. Not even branching off from there.
I feel like we have to have a Babylon 5 specific episode now, just so that I am forced to watch them all.
yes, we do have to have one. We're going to give you some time.
We might need to give you some homework before we do who we ship and why, because I got like a list.
Oh, well, don't
Put
tell
that on
me. I'm going to come up with my own wild things.
We're going to talk about episodes that don't fit the norm in a series. Musical episodes, horror episodes in Star Trek, things like Quantum Leap, where Sam couldn't control the body he was in. Which I watched a lot of Quantum Leap. I don't remember that episode, so I have to go find it now.
It's a two-parter. It's the Lee Harvey Oswald episode.
Oh,
yeah.
I
It's crazy.
have only seen scattered episodes, so
you will
I
have
will
to
have
watch.
to. I will have
to. Characters we relate to and why.
I feel like we all relate to Spock. Did we learn that today, that we are all
I
Spock?
think we did.
Yeah.
Which sci-fi universe would be the best or worst or most fun to live in? Oh, so many thoughts on that.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be like 3 different episodes.
I mean, we have all the time in the world, right?
We do.
Fandoms have started out as books and are made into movies. So
And the reverse.
Alternate realities. I mean, I think we're living in one, I'll be honest.
What are the spiritual girlies on TikTok say? Like, the timeline has shifted. We're shifting timelines.
Yeah, I think when we entered the COVID era, I was like, yeah, for sure. This is an alternate universe. This is not like somewhere there's another me who's just like enjoying life without the fear of existential dread every single day. And that version of Joseph is a bastard. Anyway.
I mean, I don't like the existential dread, but without that existential dread, I would never have met either of you. So,
you know what?
That's
fair. I was not getting on TikTok.
No, I wasn't. Honestly, I didn't even know I didn't know anything about it until
I had
the existential dread.
Yeah, I had heard about it and then refused to be on it. And somewhere like halfway through the pandemic, I was like, I'm so bored.
Similar, because it was 2021, and I was like, okay, I've avoided TikTok on purpose, but my sister kept telling me I needed to get on it, and so I did.
I don't even remember I don't even remember how I got on it. It just was like one day I was like, well, I'm doing this.
Jazzercising?
My first episodes are just jazzercise. Like, it was supposed to be an exercise / cosplay channel. So if you scroll way back, you can do some dancing, exercising with me. I should just bring that back without explanation.
I really think you should.
You should. We would all do it because, well, I don't know that we all would, but I would do it. So anyway.
One day it'll just come back without warning. So prepare yourselves.
I'm excited.
Orange or something. We will also talk about side characters, which are, by the way, my favorite.
Yeah.
They're my favorite too.
Mine too, actually. Yeah. The more I go back and rewatch the fandoms I love, I realize that like all the side characters, they make all the series, really.
And you can deep dive. Like, I'm going to throw this out there. Walter from Stargate, SG-1. And like compare and contrast him with Radar O'Reilly from MASH, and I'm just going to leave it alone. Anyway.
I mean, I have been watching the A-Team all week, so like the Barclay references, I'm like watching A-Team, and I'm like, Barclay, this is the same character. Like, he's just. I'm like, Barclay, Murdoch, they're the same guy.
They're
just a different uniform, different team.
Maybe it's not the different guy. Maybe he's a time agent. Anyway, and then what's an iconic villain? And I know for this one, we pretty much just have to sit there and give Van a ton of time because I already know she's going to deep dive into this.
Listen, I have thoughts, I have opinions, I have a dissertation.
Are we starting with Dukat and Kai Wynn, or like?
Oh God!
And then like working our way down, like.
I mean, they're definitely showing up. There's like a whole group of
villains.
not really a villain, but villains like
Mhm.
Kai Wynn. And when you watch Babylon 5, you will meet Bester,
That's
and you will understand that they are in the same villain group. And
Okay.
it's
he's
amazing.
so amazing.
All right. You know, I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna watch it tonight if I can find it.
I mean, we will find ways for you to find it, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
It's not the easiest thing to find, but I don't know
I
how
have my
much harder
I
it
have my
will be
methods.
in Europe.
In this country, there are things that are legal that are not legal in your country. I will
believe
find
that.
it.
Russia. It's very ominous, Marty.
I know. I live in the Netherlands, and we're very lax about certain things.
Like copyright.
Copyright. Look, if you download it, as long as you don't upload it, it's kind of the rule.
That makes sense, actually. Follow
Given my
that.
choices, I will have no comment on this.
I know. I do feel bad about it, though, as somebody who works in the creative industry. If I can buy it, I will buy it. Like, if I can find DVDs with the right region, I will buy it.
I mean, that's fair, and I will, speaking for myself and not as this is not the opinion of my employer. Speaking only for myself, I will say this, that I support that. Because you are trying to pay the artist, but if
Yeah.
you cannot, you must consume the content, and it's not your fault that
The streaming industry has ruined the
yes,
purchasing industry.
correct.
Yeah.
Facts.
I used to have so much physical media, and then I moved here, and I couldn't bring it with me, and because I couldn't watch it here. And then
That's
my
true.
parents just gave it all away. I had the box sets of everything. I think I had the box set of Babylon 5. I just never watched it.
We will make this happen somehow.
It'll happen. It'll happen. Yeah.
Okay, good first episode, y'all. So, are we signing off? Because I don't really have a catchy catchphrase or anything like that.
We might have to work on a catchy.
Yeah. If anybody has a catchphrase for us, we can try them out.
We can.
Ooh, a new one every time.
Yeah.
We can probably tell people that they can contact us on
Yeah,
our
where can we find you guys on social media?
So we are on Instagram, Threads, YouTube, and we now have a TikTok. So we are in a whole.
You can find another Frakkin podcast in all the cool places.
And we have a
cool places.
website, anotherfrackinpodcast.com, and I will put the socials on there. So you can find us in all of the places. Cool.
All the cool
And
places.
if you have
which means not Facebook.
Not Facebook, because Facebook is hell on earth. Anyway.
But if anybody has any recommendations for episodes that they would like us to do, ideas, let us know.
Yes, absolutely.
I could probably talk about Barclay for 30 minutes. So if somebody wants a deep dive on Barclay.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. At least.
An entire episode on like hologram addiction.
We can always just do this and just let you. There we go. See, I am a professional. I do know how to work.
Look at that. That was well played.
It was
well
very
done.
professional.
I mean, I have some skills, not many, but there we go. Okay.
I'm going to sign off with the lower decks.
Safe lower decks. Later, y'all.